And step 1 was identifying your pain. So we are going to continue with the book about inner child workbook. All right. What? Nene, you don't need stuff until I start. Lobuga. Yangi, I'm pen over there. How many pens are there on the table in your drawer? Girl. All right. Let's jump right in. Inner child workbook. Yes, I am live in Girl Hold My Hand. Hi TikTok and hi Instagram. Okay. I just got my 25x system, so I'm quite excited about this right here. Hi Giselle. Hi Maisha. Great morning, and welcome. Nice to see you here. Right, like I was saying yesterday, we did step 1, which was identifying your pain. Hi, I see the hearts on TikTok. Hi, pleasure to see you all. Thank you. Somebody says keep it up. Thank you. I'm doing my best. I will keep it up. Okay, so we jump right in, right? Research. Step 2, research your pain. I bet a lot of people have not heard about this before. Okay, I need to turn this invites on because for some reason people just try to invite themselves. Okay, again, for those that were not here, this is the book we are working with. I've been reading it and breaking it down. Inner Child Workbook, right here. Inner Child Workbook. What to do with your past when it just won't go away. So I'll start reading that and then we will go through the exercises, right? It's so fascinating how I am one person, but I look different on each screen. Now, you gather information on the events that occurred to your caretakers before your birth in your childhood, the attitudes that existed during each developmental stage, and the external factors that may have interfered with your development. Now, I want to ask a question, right? Because a lot of people, myself included, I experienced this issue where my caretakers never spoke to me about their experiences. Have you experienced that yourself? Right, where your mom or your dad or whoever raised you never sat down and explained to you what happened to them. Instagram, can you hear me? Can you hear me well? Is my mic on? Right, so I went through that issue where, being raised at home, having both my parents, they might not have lived in the same house because they were constantly traveling and they were businessmen and women, intellectuals. But nobody ever sat down and actually told me what they went through in their life, what their experiences were, the issues that they went through, and how they got out of the problems or whatever they had, what they faced in their life. And so there are some people, right, because I experienced it, there are some people who their parents never sat them down to talk to them. Even though here, in order to research your pain, it says, gather information on the events that occurred to your caretakers before your birth in your childhood, the attitudes that existed during each developmental stage, and the external factors that may have interfered with your development. For those people who swipe right for what? I'll swipe and see. Oh, I don't know. Okay. So for those people who experience what I'm talking about, where your parents have never told you what they went through. For me, what worked and what I had to do was go back to my ancestors, go back to my grandmother, go back to my grandfather, right? The little bits and pieces that I had as a childhood that were told to me when I was growing up, I clinged onto that. Of course, I went further to go to school, right? But the school that I went to wasn't to find a job. I went back to school to learn what I needed to learn to understand myself, right? So I always talk about this, how I went back to school to study psychology, to study Afrocentric consciousness, not necessarily for a job or for anybody, but for myself, to feed my soul, to know who I am, right? Because to research your pain, most of the time we are told, ask your parents what happened to them. There are some of you listening, there's some of you watching who maybe your parents are not alive anymore, right? There's some of you listening or watching who, even though your parents are alive, if you ask them, they probably will not tell you what they went through. So going back to your spirituality in that case might help you, whatever you believe, right? Or whatever it is that you want to do. One of the ladies on Instagram, I don't know if she's still on, has mentioned that she is Christian, but she is very much drawn to African spirituality, but she is scared of tapping into African spirituality because of everything that is said about it being demonic, right? I am from a Muslim family, and for me to really get to understand what is it that happened to my mother, to my father, why are they the way they are, why was my childhood the way that it was, even though I am from a Muslim family, strict Muslim family, I had to tap into Christianity, tap into Buddhism. I had to tap into African spirituality, opening my mind enough to be able to read, to learn, to ask questions to different people and get different perspective of life and how people were raised. Why? Because my parents are still alive, but these are not issues that they're going to talk about. These are not issues that they talk about, right? So if you relate to this, if this makes sense to you and you are watching and sitting there saying, my parents are alive, right? Like it says here, research your pain. Gather information on the events that occurred to your caretakers before your birth. So you're watching and you're listening and you're saying that my parents are alive, but I cannot ask them. My parents are not alive, so I cannot ask them. What I would suggest from my own experience, you can add also, you can analyze what I'm saying and add your own experiences. Have an open mind about life. If you really want to heal, right? Have an open mind about life. Really take a look at yourself. It's 1111. Really take a look at yourself and get to understand what are the things I was told as a child that I am not able to do. Was I told that if I die, I'm going to hell? If I do this, I'm going to hell? If I am around these people, this is going to happen to me? The judgments and the societal ideas and the stereotypes that we're raised with, wherever you are in the world, right? These are things that happen. Let me continue. As young children, you are self-centered, right? Yesterday we talked about how narcissism is okay because everybody's a narcissist in one way or the other. We are all self-centered. which can be healthy, but at the same time, if you add if you add trauma to it, that's when it becomes destructive and toxic. As young children, you are self-centered. Everything in your world revolves around you. You do not have the capacity to understand that some events, totally unrelated to you, influence the care you received. Your mother's lack of attention, therefore, might have been experienced by you as a sign that you were not worthy of her love. You could carry this feeling of unworthiness into adulthood and feel shame for being unloved. Right? Do you relate to that? Let me read that again. As young children, you are self-centered. Everything in your world revolves around you. You do not have the capacity to understand that some events, totally unrelated to you, influence the care you received. Your mother's lack of attention, therefore, might have been experienced by you as a sign that you were not worthy of her love. You could carry this feeling of unworthiness into adulthood and feel shame for being unloved. I can 100% relate to this, right? So when I growing up, hi, welcome, right? So I can 100% relate to this. Later on in life, later on in life, I had to understand that, or as I grew and as I went into myself and my spirituality and the reflections that I was doing, I came to understand that my mother being unattentive, being hard on me, being a difficult person, was not because she didn't love me. It's because she was going through her own pain. Right? The issue and the difficulty for me personally is that my parents are still in denial about their pain, about what they went through. Like if I speak to my father about this, he would always say that he had an amazing childhood and nothing happened to him. God bless you too, King. Right? He would always say that his life was good, his childhood was great, nothing happened to him, and he was fine, which is not so, right? And when I speak to my mother, or the time that I did and spoke to her about these issues, she told me that she wasn't interested to talk about this, or the fact that, you know, she is fine and she is happy and everything is going well, and her mother took care of her, and her mother being my grandmother. And so when I mention talking to my ancestors and going back to my ancestors, the one person that I had to tap into is my grandmother. And tapping into my grandmother and being open to whatever messages she would send to me, it helped me understand how to break generational curses. Right? So you might sit there like myself, not being able maybe to forgive your parents, still feeling the hurt and the pain that was put onto you by your parents. I feel that. Thank you for the hearts, TikTok. Thank you for the hearts. I'm sorry, I don't mind blocking you. This is the wrong channel for that. You might be still feeling that like I was, right? But I'm not saying just get up and forgive your parents, because we all have to go through a journey of being able to completely forgive not just our parents but anybody in our life. But I'm asking you to understand, and I'm giving you a different perspective to see that no matter what happened to you with your parents and however you feel about your parents, they were unconscious. The pain and the hurt and the trauma that came onto you is because it is the trauma that they faced in their lives, right? For people who have never seen me, I always say that my vision in life is to create a home for those who never felt at home, to speak to the souls of women specifically, but men are always included. Why women? Because I know the emotional journey and the life of a woman, because I am a woman, right? And I speak to melanated women as well. Why? Because that's who I am. So I can speak to the journeys and the struggles and the pains of women who look like myself, right? And so when I say whatever pain and hurt that you went through with your family, with your parents, I am speaking to a specific group of people who have always felt like a misfit, always felt like an underdog, who has always felt like the black sheep of the family, right? There are a lot of people who have never felt any of this, who don't even know what trauma is, whose lives were wonderful and were great. And so if you're watching me and you're thinking, I didn't go through that, then that means I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to the people who find it difficult to say that I'm going to retire my parents. I'm going to do this, and this for my mother and my father. Why? Because they are still on their healing journey. And I know there are specific people in the world who had to separate themselves from their family to be able to heal themselves, to be able to be better human beings, right? I know because I am that person. That's who I am. I had to do that. I had to separate myself from my parents to be able to sit here with you today, to share my life journey, to share my purpose. Because if I continued being in connection with my mother specifically, right, I would still be chronically depressed, be in so much pain, not really know who I am. Because mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, I was growing. Right? So I already knew all this information. But the issue for me was that I was still in connection with my mother, because she was the only person that I would speak to. And because I was always in connection with her, I felt crazy, because spiritually she wasn't growing. I'm not blaming, I'm just explaining for this specific group of people to understand how the journey is. Right? So she wasn't growing mentally and spiritually. She was still the same woman that I knew whatever years ago. And so I personally would always feel crazy when I spoke to her, right? Because of the gaslighting. If you don't know about gaslighting and manipulation, read about it. And so because of that relationship with her, when I go out there to build romantic relationship, friendships, I will still act and behave the same way that I act and behave with my parents. And so me understanding and seeing that and having that come to light, I realized that, okay, I need to make a change. Right? I always say, and I even said that here yesterday, that if you feel stuck, if you're watching this right now and you feel stuck in your life and you feel like you could be more, you could do more, you could be better, you could be greater, Not that you're not already, but you know that your life can be bigger. Then that means you are not stuck. It just means that something in your life needs to change. Either the people that you surrounded yourself with. Right? I am creating communities right now. So if this relate to you, send me a message on any platform and we can talk about this. Because I have had to go through the journey of changing friends, changing communities, changing my mindset, right? Separating from my family to be able to see the way that was created for me. Let's move on. Okay. In researching this pain, where was I open here? Right. In researching this pain, the adult part of you who is not self-centered can comprehend the effect of external factors. You understand the shortcomings of those who raised you. Exactly what I was just talking about, right? Let me read that paragraph again. In researching this pain, the adult part of you who is not self-centered can comprehend the effect of external factors. You understand the shortcomings of those who raised you. Understanding these factors arms, ARMS, your adult self with the information needed to help the inner child dissolve the shame, grief, and finally resolve pain, right? Exactly what I was talking about. The moment you understand and can see that your parents, your caretakers, wherever you were raised, even if you are adopted, your adopted parents, your foster parents, they raised you the way that they raised you with the information and the knowledge that they have. That's the only person that they can be. They cannot be anything other than that. Right? So, when I talk about these issues, I always mention and talk about the products that I use, the products that I sell. Why? Because I had to come to a point to understand that, okay, I need herbal supplements. Because these are things that I've never seen being used at home when I was being raised. Right? I talked about full body nutrition. I talked about women's health. How some of us women, our parents never, and even some men, where our parents never sat down to talk to us about what puberty is and the steps that we need to take care of ourselves, how the hormones change in our body. We have never gone through that process. And so that's what pushed me to what I do now, and even the products that I use and I sell now. One of them is a complete women's health. Why? There are some women who are ashamed to talk about this. From urinary tract infection, from the pH balance, right? And that's not just because you're sleeping with people. It could be just because nobody has ever taught you what your body needs, the nutritions and the supplements, the types of food that you need to eat. Hydrating yourself. Some people in their family, all they eat is junk food and drink soda. Right? My family, and I know that this is not just, well, I speak specifically to people who look like me, but I've seen it in other communities as well. From stroke to heart disease to diabetes, right? If you look up the adverse childhood experiences, even broken bones, is an issue in with that because of toxic stress. So what I sell and what I do are the things that brought me back to life. And there was a time, I have the picture on my phone here that I can do on Instagram, but I don't know how to share stuff on TikTok yet. There was a time I was so chronically depressed. I've always been depressed my entire life. My entire life, chronic depression. So depressed that you wouldn't believe that this is me, right? When you see somebody's skin, it's ashy, very ashy. But then sometimes in us women, you wouldn't know if they're depressed or they're in pain because we know how to beautify ourselves, right? We know how to put the makeup. See how smooth it is to cover everything. We know how to do that. Now when it comes to men, you have some men go to the gym, look all ripped and buff, right? And they are beautiful. The skin is glistening, but deep within they are hurting, and you wouldn't know it until you are in proximity with them. On my Instagram here, I was reading a comment from a lady that I knew for years, and she was saying, I thought you were always happy, right? I have done modeling. I'll share the pictures. And for TikTok, you can only see that in my other TikTok account, which is my personal one, and that's Empress Fire, spelled Fayer. I'll share that tomorrow. I'm editing it. I was doing fashion. I was doing modeling. And she said, because of the modeling and the fashion that you were doing, you looked so happy. And I've always seen you as an independent woman. And I had to respond and say, I was never the typical independent woman. Neither was I happy. I knew how to look good. Even though my skin would be ashy, I can put shea butter because I use shea butter. I can do my makeup, the blush, and everything. Look very simple, very presentable, look very good. I told her, but I was in so much pain. I was hurting. So what I do and the products I sell are the things that helped me, right? Brought me back to life. From the coffee I drink is an herbal supplement. It's not just any coffee. From drinking NRG to regulate my energy, right? Because I had to learn that when my energy is through the roof, sometimes it's a facade. Have you ever felt drained? You go out there, you are at work, you speak to people, right? You're your happy bubbly self, and then you come back home and you are just completely drained. Why? Because that happy bubbly self that you're projecting out there, that's not you. That is not you, right? So this is something that I use. Why I use this, you say? Because this is my energy level. If I go below this, come help me, I am depressed, right? If I go above this energy, then it's a facade. I'm putting on a facade, and a lot of us put on a facade, acting happy, acting joyful, acting because this is what society tells us to do. But the moment you get to understand your trauma and the issues that happen to you and why you do the things you do, Yesterday I spoke about Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? And TikTok especially, and YouTube. I have a lot of his videos on there where he talked about lose your mind and create a new one. Create a new one. Create who you are and not who the world wants you to be. I had to be able to see that. No, yeah, this is the women's full body nutritions I was talking about. I use this for my own health and well-being. Because yesterday, or if you check all my accounts, I've talked about this over and over, where when I was 14 years old, that's when I first started to see my menstrual period, menstruation. That's when it started at 14. Why do I still remember that day? Is because I went to the bathroom and then I came back out, right? And I saw blood and I told my mother. And I needed help. They didn't know how to use pads, didn't know what to do with it. No, that subject has never came up in my family. And so when I told her that I saw my period, her answer was, that's it. You are about to get pregnant now at 14. Which is why it's so important for us to break the generational curses. Why do I use this product? Because one, I never knew, neither was I ever taught the process of cleaning, of cleansing my body, the process of cleansing myself, the process of the things that is needed to be used as a woman, the power that we have as a woman, that our menstruation is not just menstruation, it's the moon cycle. Just think about it and look it up. It's the moon cycle, right? Hours come every month. What is the moon cycle? It's part of the power of the feminine. So there are some things we do, some products we use, some foods that we eat that doesn't align with our body and our moon cycle. I had to learn that the very hard way. Let me go on. I'll recap from the top and read it all, right? So step 2, research your pain, which is what we're talking about today. Gather information on the events that occurred to your caretakers before your birth in your childhood, the attitudes that existed during each developmental stage, and the external factors that may have interfered with your development. As young children, you are self-centered. Everything in your world revolves around you. You do not have the capacity to understand that some events totally unrelated to you influence the care you receive. An example for that for me is that when I was a child, every child wants to sleep, spend the night in their parents' room. Alright, so for me, when my mother was home from traveling, I would want to sleep in her bed. And she would never allow me to do that. Now that I am a mother, I make sure that my daughter shares my bed. Because that's the need. That can cause abandonment issues, feelings of unworthiness, feeling unwanted, feeling like you don't belong. These are all feelings I had, right? Let's go on. Your mother's lack of attention, therefore, might have been experienced by you as a sign that you were not worthy of her love, right? Do you feel worthy? in your life, or do you feel unworthy? If you feel unworthy, then you need to go back to see where that came from. How did it start? Who made you feel like that in your childhood? What type of trauma is it? You were not worthy of her love. You could carry this feeling of unworthiness into adulthood and feel shame for being unloved. That happened to me, right? Shame, guilt, fear, unworthiness, not knowing your value as a human being, be you a man or a woman, because these issues happen to men as well. It's just that society, we don't talk about it a lot. In researching this pain, the adult part of you who is not self-centered can comprehend the effect of external factors. You understand the shortcomings of those who raised you. Understanding these factors arms your adult self with the information needed to help the inner child dissolve the shame, grief, and finally resolve the pain. This is essential to working with your children within, the inner children within. Your children within, because it frees you both from carrying your caretaker's pain and from blaming yourself for it. Blaming yourself for it and carrying their pain. Which is why it is said that when you heal yourself, you heal your ancestors. When you heal yourself, you heal your bloodline. Because who we are today is a combination of whatever happened to the people that came before us. Be it slavery, right? Be it before slavery. Be it adverse childhood experiences. Whatever pain you feel. One time I heard a lady, it was a wonderful analogy because it helped me really see myself, right? This lady said that when she was going through her healing, she knew 100% that all the pain and the hurt she was carrying was not her own. It's from all the line of women in her family that came before her that never had the opportunity to heal. I think her YouTube channel, from, if I remember, it was called Unconditional Healing. I think Unconditional Healing. And when she said that, I was like, yes, I can 100% relate that all the pain that I'm feeling at that point, it really had nothing to do with me. It's from all the women that came before me that never had the opportunity to heal themselves. And as I went through life, that I saw that. Because when I spoke to my auntie, who's back home in the Gambia, I love her very much. As a child, when I speak, people would always say that my voice and my way of being is very similar. It's much more similar to my auntie. She traveled the world before she went back home. And so whenever I would talk to her about my depressive state of being in America, and most times locking myself in my room and not wanting to go out, right? At that point, I was just learning about depression and anxiety. Telling her the pain that I faced back home in the Gambia before I came to America, and how all that trauma that I carried, she would always say, I know what you are saying. I went through the same thing. But I could also see that she wasn't healing. How do I know? Because she couldn't talk to me the way I'm talking to you. She would always say, but just pray. Just listen to whatever the mosque is saying. Listen to whatever the imam is saying. And I would say, I have listened to them, but it's not feeding my soul. I'm not getting what I need to understand why I have all this pain. And she would say, don't worry about it. Just listen to them. Right? Blaming yourself if you have been abused. And let me show you here the different types of abuse that I'm talking about. I don't know if I'll just do this. The different types of abuse that I am talking about. I posted it on my Instagram last night. Right? Abuse. There's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, which is the 3 types of ACEs. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So it's abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. Under abuse, you have physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. Neglect, physical neglect, emotional neglect. Household dysfunction, incarcerated relative, divorce, mother treated violently, substance abuse, mental illness. You might go through all of this in your life, and if you've never looked into your pain and what happened to your family, you've always blamed yourself for who you are and the things that happen to you and how you feel about yourself. But the moment you get on a healing journey, you don't blame yourself anymore, because now you can see why you act the way that you act. There's a comment here in Girl Hold My Hand. I cannot see the comment. It doesn't come through. I'll check it when I'm done. Right? If you blame yourself. Yesterday when I came on live, I spoke about how the words that we use. I am dumb. I am stupid. Forgetting that anything that you put under I am registers in your mind, and it's what you would believe. Right? Okay, I see the hearts on TikTok, so you get what I'm saying. So I'll continue. So if you feel like you always blame yourself about everything, there's a healthy way of blaming yourself. There's taking responsibility, there's taking accountability, and then taking the next steps to change whatever mistake it is and then change your life. That's a healthy blame. We all need that in order to get to where we want to be. But if the way that you blame yourself is crippling, is draining, is overwhelming, it breaks your soul down, it breaks you down, you get depressed. You start to have depressive thoughts, suicidal thoughts, all these things come up. Then you still have not healed yourself. You still have not taken the steps necessary to understand your pain and your trauma. Okay, this kind of pain is carried from generation to generation through a process called mimicking. We need to break that down, right? This kind of pain is carried from generation to generation through a process called mimicking. As a child, you mimicked everything your caretaker did, and their pain was passed on to you in all your interactions. For instance, if your mother's father died right before you were born, your experience of birth and the following months of your life would have been influenced by your mother's grief. Her grief would have become your grief because of your symbolic tie with her. You would have sensed her pain in every touch, heard it in every word. You would have inherited an aspect of her grief because you would have mimicked and responded to her grief-stricken behavior. Mimicking is evident in many second-generation Holocaust survivors, right? And Holocaust survivors, we can translate that to slavery for us as melanated folks, wherever you are, on the continent, in America, in Latin America, in the Caribbean, who inherited their parents' grief. They also inherit the guilt their parents felt for having survived. While they that's Holocaust, right? For us, it could be what? Inferiority complex. Feeling inferior, which is feeling unworthy, feeling invaluable, thinking that you're not worthy enough to be in certain environments and certain societies, and getting the money and feeling guilty about being rich. Why? Because the news and society is telling you that people are dying and hungry. They also inherit the guilt their parents felt for having survived. While they may not have experienced this atrocity directly, it was woven so deeply into the fabric of their parents' behavior that became a model for their own behavior as well. The result of this mimicking is inherited pain. Doing your research will help you identify the inherited pain in your inner children. The inherited pain your inner children carry. To explain that, right? I always talk about the book by Dr. Joy DeGraw, which is listen to this. We're talking about doing your research. Do that research. You can find her videos on YouTube. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. The book is talking about Holocaust survivors and their parents and all of that. But us too, as a people, right, when you inherit that pain from your family, when you inherit that pain from your generation, doing the research to understand where your pain is coming from. Because like we just read, most of the pain that we carry is not ours. It's inherited. It's inherited from our mother, whatever it was, whatever happened to them when they were pregnant, in their teenage years, when they were younger, right? They carried that pain if they never healed from it. And our mother or father is carrying pain from their mother and father, whatever they experience, poverty or not poverty, coming from a rich family, losing their money. And our grandparents inherit their pain from whatever happened to our great-grandparents, which is the generational curse, which is the cycle of pain and hurt that we carry on, right? So when you go to post-traumatic, so there's a difference between post-traumatic, okay, let me differentiate it, right? There is post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is the pain, the hurt from childhood adversity, from childhood trauma, that pain and hurt, the residue, right? The grief of losing a loved one. There is that. But there's also post-traumatic slave syndrome. What our ancestors, our great-grandparents, right, from the slave ship, being dropped at different destinations. The pain that they went through that is passed down right now in our society. That society can be, it's everybody who looks like me, wherever you're from, wherever you're watching me from, and wherever you live. We are all in this mess together. Okay? So doing the research, I need to drink some water. I've not taken my multivitamins. I can feel it. Nene. Nene. She can't hear me. Doing the research. This research, I'm going to take one of my samples. Doing the research. This research is conducted in several ways, right? So what I'm doing is basically reading the book and breaking it down the best way that I can. If you are not intellectual and you don't like the intellectual stuff, there's a lot of people who you can listen to and watch online as well who talk to these things. One of the people that I always talk about, because I am a part of her community, right, of health and wellness and women who are going further, is Coach Stormy. If you don't know her, look her up. Everything she talks about is the same thing that I talk about. The only difference is I come at it from a more, not necessarily intellectual, but a combination of both. Because what she talks about is childhood trauma. What she talks about is adverse childhood experiences, right? So these are things that you can do. Another person that I talk about, and everybody that I talk about and what I've used and how they help me, wherever you're watching me, you can find the links. Another person that I always mention is Cooperatate. Cooperatate shows you the way to heal yourself. His delivery might be different, but he's basically talking about the things that I talk about in his own way, right? So, which goes back to what I mentioned, being able to have an open mind to pick up different perspective of what people are saying. There's a saying that success leave clues, healing also leave clues. People who have healed themselves, when you listen to them speak, they always talk about their journey and how it was for them. Alright? Okay. This research is conducted in several ways. With the first exercise, interviewing yourself, you begin by responding to a series of questions that elicit your memories. I'm going to skip this part because this part explains how to answer the questions, and I'm going to go straight to the questions, right? That makes it easier because I can explain those. For the simple fact that I have used the book and also went through the journey. That makes it easier. So we just move ahead to the practical steps that are necessary. Okay, so here, how you carry these issues, which is exercise 2. The topic is how you carry these issues in your life today. Everything we talk about is now, is today. Okay. The purpose of the exercise. In this exercise, you become aware of how the unresolved issues from each stage of development have been carried into your life. Another thing that I would tell you to research and to look up, right? I always forget that I had this certificate, which is childhood development. Childhood development, because there are different developmental stages of a child. Most of us, our parents, there was just a continuation, right? There's no understanding that from 0 to 5 you needed specific things. From 5 to 10, I'm breaking it down by 5s just to make it easy. From 0 to 5, you needed specific things. From 5 to 10, you needed specific ways of somebody interacting with you, somebody communicating with you, the hugs and the love. From 10 to 15, you needed a different way of somebody speaking to you, maybe preparing you for puberty. From 10 to 15, right? And showing you the way. And then from 15 to 20, that's also another different preparation that we needed. Childhood development. From 20 to 25, now you're getting into adulthood. Now you are in adulthood. There are different things that you needed as well. So childhood development is very important to understand. Doesn't matter what way you are. Doesn't matter who you are. If you relate to what I am saying, if it makes sense to you, this is for you. This is the full body nutrition I was talking about. I use it every day. I drink it every day to fill my body with the nutrition. Some of them I lost during my chronic depression stage, right? I'm not making any medical claims, but these are things that helped me personally, so I use them. And I sell them as well, because it is in line with everything that I talk about. So guidelines and pace setters. Okay, let me read the whole paragraph, right? Guidelines and pace setters. These questions are open-ended than the statements to which you just responded. You may be surprised when you actually start looking at your life to see the degree of dysfunction that relates back to a specific time in your life. Let me lift this up. These questions are more open-ended than the statements to which you just responded. You may be surprised when you actually start looking at your life to see the degree of dysfunction that relates back to a specific time in your life. You may feel grateful to have made this discovery, or it may seem devastating. Remember, the purpose of your working in this program, the purpose of you listening to me, if you're just joining, we're reading the Inner Child Workbook, right? What to do with your past when it just won't go away. So, let me read that again. Remember, the purpose of you working this program, or listening to me, or watching me. Hello, Brandy. Is to assess realistically what you did and did not learn, so you can capitalize on your strengths and identify the issues that need to be addressed. If the strengths and the weaknesses feel imbalanced, don't be concerned. Great day, great day, great day. Thank you for the blue hearts. I am channeling Nehemiah today. If the strengths and weaknesses feel imbalanced, don't be concerned. It simply means that you may have to feel the pain you were unable. Feel the pain you were unable to feel as a child. Don't be afraid. It is safe for you to do that now. Some of us have never had the chance to feel our pain, which is, I had a dream of my inner child talking to my parents last night. However, my dad is dead. Lean into it, right? You specifically have mentioned how you are attracted to African spirituality. And African spirituality is being able to tap into that, dead or not. I would sometimes have dreams about my grandmother and my grandfather. Both of them passed away. And that's how I was able to break some of these generational curses that I talk about. Yeah, so preparation. Go to the place where you do your internal work. Put on some soothing music. Yesterday, if you were part of the live, I talked about this, right? How I did that ceremony and would put on music and dress the way that I used to love when I was a child, right? And get into my healing mode to prepare myself, listening to India Ari, right? If you like, then take few deep breaths and surround yourself in protective light. You might call in the support of your higher power, higher self, right? I think I'm going to dive into the questions because, the process and the exercises, I put them into the questions and as we are going. Giselle, if you're here, did you take your nutrition for today? Number 1, when was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared for? When was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared for? And I'm going to add, as a child, were you ever shown that love? Did your parents hug you? Did you have the chance to cuddle with your parents? How did they show you love? How did you learn to love? It's in my car so I can take when I leave this place. I made sure I took it with me so I can take my nutrition. Excellent. Alright, so I'm just going to give you a moment to think about this. So the question is, when was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared for? Can you remember your parents, be it mom or dad, hugging you, loving you, regardless of what you did, regardless of what you broke or whatever problem you did? Your parents showed you love like you could do no wrong. Have you ever experienced that? You can write that down in a journal. My mom hugged me and loved me, but it always felt like my dad diminished that love in her. So you might be carrying the pain of both your dad and your mom at the same time. Right? And feel free, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, to write in the comments and let me know. I will read it and we'll talk about it. And for me personally, right, I have been hugged by my mom, but it didn't feel like a hug, like that hug that you get, that loving hug that you get, and you can feel it in your soul. You can feel the heartbeat and the love and the joy of the person oozing out of them, their energy coming into you. I did not feel that love, that type of hug. She would stand up and protect me. He wanted to beat me. He was a boxer, so he would beat me with his hands, and that was a weapon she used, she used to cry. Yeah. So for you, right, the wound might be more towards the father wound. And the father wound, any man that comes into your life, it will stem from the father wound. Some people have the mother wound, right? For me, I had the mother wound as well. So how I dealt with women was the same way I dealt with my mother. I had both father wound and mother wound. It felt like I had no parents. So the men I dated, right, it followed the path and the relationship that I had with my father. How I dealt with women. I hated women. Why? I hated myself. I always talk about this, right? How much I hated myself. They didn't like who I was. Because if you see me, I am a photocopy of my mother. I look exactly like my mother. And I didn't like that idea. And I wanted to change it, and I couldn't change it. Because I saw her life and I didn't want to be like her. So every woman I dealt with, it followed the path and the way that I acted with my mother. So, how were you loved? Right? The question was, when was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared for? Maybe you are in a toxic relationships. Maybe you've always had toxic relationships. Maybe healthy men or healthy women bore the life out of you, right? Because that underline that comes from a traumatic household, a traumatic family, when you don't get that underlying pump in your relationship, it feels boring. Peace feels boring because you were not raised in a peaceful home where things are peaceful. When you go to a Zen monastery, nothing is happening in a monastery. It's peaceful. If you're from a home that's peaceful, right, it's very different than when you are from a very traumatizing home, when you had a traumatic experience in your life, right? So the next question, number 2. Number 1 was when was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared for? And I always explain this fact that in terms of that question, and then I'm going to move on to the next one, right? When was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared for? Look at it this way. A lot of people are stuck in toxic relationships because the toxicity is still within them. I'm speaking from experience as somebody who is from a traumatizing home, had traumatizing experiences, and I've always been in toxic relationships, right? So if you're from a home that's traumatic, like there's no love being shown, people are emotionally unavailable, that's one. And maybe you were spanked, maybe you were bitten. I was spanked nearly every week or every day in some instances. Maybe as a child you were sexually abused too, right? Maybe you were hypervigilant, which means you don't know what's going to happen in each day. Daddy might come home drunk and beat up your mom, as we mentioned in in the post that I talked about, household dysfunction, mother treated violently. So your mother's on edge, you are on edge yourself. So there's always that underlying pumping every time, the toxic stress of you constantly having to wonder, will I eat today? How distressed will mommy be? Right? Will daddy come home and beat mommy up? Or daddy will come home or beat me up? Or will daddy even come home? Right? For me, another one, which is part of my money trauma, is that whenever I had to ask my mom for money, I get very anxious, because she would want me to explain what I am going to use with every single, my country's money is Dalasi. With every single Dalasi, I would have to explain to her what I am using it for. So a part of my anxiety is asking for money to anybody. But I didn't know that I picked that up from there. So the hypervigilance of wondering, the anxiety of a new situation, of a change, of being better, all of that, it carries into the relationships that we do, which is why some people get stuck in toxic relationships, because you need that dose. That is part of addiction. You need that dose, that underlying pumping. You need to feel the excitement. I can speak about this because my mother is still married for 20 something years in the most toxic, painful, abusive, hurtful marriage I have ever witnessed in my life. So if you've also never seen your mother, your father show love, exhibit love to themselves and to each other, then you yourself might be ashamed of love, not knowing how to give love, emotionally constipated. That's how I like to call it, emotional unavailability. It's all a part of it, which is why we're talking about research your pain. So you have to understand, where are these coming from? In the beginning of the reading, right, I mentioned how it said here to go back and ask your caretakers. But if you are not able to ask your caretakers, studying their life, the moment you know your own pain and you are aware of it, you are able to look back and look at your family members and see each one of them, how they act, how they talk, how they behave, how they handle situations. Can they handle conflict? Can they speak without screaming? Can they communicate? For some of us women, right, I just spoke about the products I use because I was never taught how to take care of my health. For some of us women who want to tap into our femininity, for me it was a huge and a long process. Some of us have never ever seen a woman in our life love themselves and take care of themselves. If you see a woman and people label them masculine, the woman did not just get up and act masculine. I am not talking about different genders and all of that. I don't understand that, so I don't talk about that, right? I am talking about womanhood. Women who want to tap into their femininity, but they don't know what to do. That is because in our family, we have never seen a woman love themselves, take care of themselves, tap into their femininity, right? Take baths and herbal baths. And when I say baths, I don't mean just having a bathtub. You can have that, and you can do bubble baths and all of these, right? But some of us, our ancestors, they use buckets with the herbs. Pour the cup on them. That's part of loving yourself. Walking bare feet, being down to earth, grounded, maybe meditating. They might be religious, but they are a believer, which means they believe in a higher power. Because some of us are from families who talk about God or Allah or the ancestors, but they are not believers. These are just words that they say because everybody talks about that. In my language, we say Yalla Bahna. Yalla Bahna in English is what? God is good. Christianity, they say God is good. In Muslim, Yalla Bahna is part of Islam. Right? So if you've never seen these things, you've tried to do them for yourself in your life, and you don't know where to start, what to do, and you still have that pain and that hurt, then it stems from somewhere. And this is why a lot of people get stuck in toxic relationships. Sometimes we tell people, why are you still in that relationship? Why don't you leave? It's a difficult process to leave. Right? I was in one. Well, I've been in toxic relationships, but I didn't understand what a situationship is up until my last one 4 years ago. And it's an emotional roller coaster when you are trying to leave, right? Because if you are not healed as a woman and you carry all that pain and hurt, and the man you are with also have not healed, right? And they carry all that pain and hurt within them, there's always a friction. There's always that excitement that I talk about, right? And there's always that dopamine hit where one day they show you all the love and the next day they withdraw. So what is the addictive part of that relationship? You are always waiting for that dopamine hit, for that love. So you get stuck in that situation, hoping and believing that at any day, at any point, they are going to come back and give you your hit, give you your dopamine hit. I want to contribute. You can contribute in the chat, but if you want to be a part of the live, send me a message and we talk about it. I'm not just on live to just chat. So send me a message and we can have a conversation about it, sir. I love that you want to contribute. Let's have a conversation first before we talk about this live. Thank you. Right? And the next one is, what does trust mean to you? You that is listening, you that is watching me right now, how do you see trust? What do you think about trust? Do you trust yourself first, right? Because in order for you, my trauma is super severe. Can you give me an example, like just you writing that? What is the first thing that came to mind with me asking that question? Or also the most severe aspect of it, the part that trust that means we are safe to share and give. without fear of consequence. Yeah, Nina Simone said that freedom is having no fear, right? Freedom is having, okay, 3 capsules daily, so I'll just take one. Freedom is having sexual abuse as a child, chaos as a kid. Yeah, that was my childhood as well. It was my childhood as well. Drugs in home, yes. Lights off, yes. Parents in and out of jail, okay. Which is part of, okay. Homosexual abuse, that one I didn't experience. Parents in and out of jail, I didn't necessarily experience that. But I had my uncles. Most of my uncles were in and out of jail, right? Spiritual abuse in terms of church hurt, right? Because I had mosque hurt. So one of the things that trauma does, it changes your being. Right. I see. I understand. Lots, yeah, I understand, right? So what that does, love rightly, I love that name, love rightly. What that does, right? It changes your, I don't want to say DNA, and because I don't know how that is, but it just changes your makeup. It changes your mind, right? It changes the way that you see the world, right? So you mentioned trust is being safe. Trust means we are safe to share and give. But that trust starts with trusting oneself, right? Because I cannot trust you if I don't trust myself. I had to learn that the hard way, because I would trust people because of all the trauma I talked about and the things that I went through. But I first had to trust myself, believe in myself enough to know that if I get myself in any situation, I can get myself out of that situation, right? That's number one. Trust in myself to know what's good for me. Trust in myself, to know what I want, right? And you had mentioned spiritual abuse. That's another thing that needs to heal. One person who talks about this constantly is Real Kim Talk. That's if you like the Christian sermons, right? But you can have that anywhere too, where spiritual people can explain to you their own hurt, their own spiritual hurt, and how they were able to get over it. I believe when it comes to healing, spirituality is an important aspect of healing. Hear me right. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about spirituality. Seeing yourself as one with the Creator, as one with the divine, right? I think in Christianity, in the Bible, it says we were created in the image of God. If we were created in the image of God, then who are we? Right? So spirituality for me is an important aspect of healing. But having trust is deep. Having trust is not just trusting another to be safe enough. There's that. But it not just trusting yourself, but trusting in the divine. That's the best way I can put it. trusting in the things unseen, trusting in a higher power, trusting, right? Trusting that everything is okay, trusting that you are safe in your body, in who you are, in your soul, no matter what it is you went through, right? Trusting in a divine order, trusting that you can become who you want to be. I wanted to be this woman that is sitting here and speaking, that is giving out these messages. I wanted to be the woman who can tap into a higher power, who can exhibit my spiritual gifts in a way that's not, oh, come to me, I can do spiritual work for you, which I get a lot of messages about. And I'm like, I never talk about spiritual work. What makes people think that I do spiritual work, right? I didn't want to do it in that way. Was it a journey for me to trust that I can do this? Hell yeah. It was a long journey. I have been on a spiritual path anywhere from 8 to 9 years. Which is why I can talk about these issues without any script. Right? There's the trust is deep. Trust is deep. There's trust of writing your goals down, journaling your goals down, and trusting that no matter what happened and no matter what your pain is, those will manifest into reality. Trusting that you are going to wake up tomorrow. Do we know that we will wake up tomorrow? We don't. Do we know what's going to happen in the next second? We don't know. But our entire life is predicated on trust. Trusting in the unknown, right? So what does trust mean to you? Do you think you just have to trust another? Because you cannot trust another if you don't trust in yourself. Even if you say, I trusted this person and they broke my heart, you expected them to act and behave a certain way, which they didn't. If it's a romantic partner, like Coach Kent said, and R.C. Blakes would talk about, that means your vetting skills were not strong yet, right? So, if we remove trust in human beings, trust in others, if we remove that, because my experience with trauma, right, because I consider mine, just like Love rightly said, severe, to the point that, we had to go through great lengths for me and my sister to still stay intact together. Because if not, we would have been divided, because we were always compared, to the point that, and this broke me, where they would tell my younger sister that if she listens to me, or if she talks to me, or if she believes to me, I am going to destroy her life. I, her blood sister. This came from my parents, right? So one of the things in my experience to stay together, it's very hard. Oh my God, I know that. It's very hard. It's a difficult thing to go through, because I had to every day validate my younger sister's feelings, and also, even though I was going through my own pain, let her know and understand that I am not out there to hurt her, because she is my blood and I love her and I want the best for her. We were separated to the point that, I had mentioned here that time I was on live on TikTok. I had mentioned how, for me, when I am depressed, I don't eat most of the time because I exercise, and I walk for hours. I can walk 3 hours, right? I would walk. In Brooklyn, I would go from Brownsville Eastern Parkway, and I would walk all the way to Grand Army Plaza. That's about an hour plus. Yes, so I don't eat when I'm depressed, so I lose weight, right? My sister, when she is depressed, she overeats. She stress eat. Yeah, I do the same thing. Girl. I would walk out, and then I lose so much weight and I get so skinny. My sister gets really big when she is depressed because she overeats. She hides to eat because of the trauma in the home where she is living now with my mother. That in itself was used against us, where she was told that I was better than her, I looked better than her, I looked younger than her. Why? Because my parents couldn't see that both her and me are hurting. Both her and me are suicidal thoughts. She didn't know she was suicidal. The moment I was able to see my sister's trauma and her suicide, it was a light bulb moment for me, because then I was able to see mine as well. Because she would tell me I was the only person she would listen to. She wouldn't listen to anybody else. That was an issue too in the family. That she would listen to me, she would hear me, she would do the things that I tell her. Anybody else that tell her to do something, she will not listen to them, right? So my experience, right, with trauma in that sense is needing the validation and the love of others. And so I trusted people more than I trusted myself. I trusted what people told me. I wanted the love, the attention, and the everything of others, forgetting myself, because I've never seen anybody do it, like I said, right? But me learning and growing, the idea of what trust is supposed to be, it completely changed, right? Because as I mentioned before, yesterday, if anybody doesn't know who Mooji is, please look up Mooji, Mooji, who talks about how we all live in one earth, but there are different worlds. Our interpretation of the world, our expectations, our perspective, each and every one of us is different. Some of us say this, but are we saying it from a knowing perspective? And he would give an example most of the time. He would say that, let me try to give you this example, right? When you go to bed and you are sleeping and you have a dream, let's say, for example, you share your bed with a romantic partner. You share your bed with a brother or a sister. You share your bed with a friend. Whoever you share your bed with, you are sleeping in bed, right? And you have a dream. No matter how deep your dream is, no matter what you are dreaming, you cannot share your dream with the person that you are in bed with. Somebody can say, I can hear in my head somebody saying, but I can tell them. Yes, you can tell them. That's the only way you can share the dream. But the dream that is going on within you, you cannot give it to the next person. You cannot know what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling unless I tell you. But what's going on here, you don't know. We don't know it for anybody. Right? So each and every one of us, we have our own world of how we see things in life. And I cannot take mine out and put it into you. First time I heard that, it felt spooky. It took a while for that to sink in. Right? Which means everything we talk about, everybody who's watching me on Facebook, YouTube, on TikTok here, I struggle with how I perceive things. You got it exactly, right? Everybody that's watching me on every channel, you see me, you hear me differently. You have different perspectives of me. You have different ideas of me. You hear me differently. It doesn't mean you are wrong. It doesn't mean I am wrong. It just means that is your perspective of the world. That is your world. That is what's happening in your head. Right? Which is why my goal for studying psychology was, why do I do the things that I do? Why do we do the things that we do? Right? Let me read this here. My ears are itching. Me too. Pass on what I went through. Based on what I went through, I'm struggling even in my current relationship based on my experience. Yes. Based on lots of past triggers. Love rightly said. Yeah. And I always say that triggers are a wonderful, wonderful thing. I wish somebody told me before. Triggers are an easy way to heal yourself, to see your trauma. I used to run away from my triggers. People that trigger me, situations that trigger me, I would not be a part of that. Right? But being able to understand my triggers, to see the things that trigger me, to be able to tap into myself when I'm triggered, has been a powerful healing journey. Because triggers are a reminder that something is not healed yet. When it is healed, you don't feel the trigger. There's a saying that wisdom is being triggered without the emotional charge. Something like that. You can look it up. Somebody said that. I can't remember exactly. But wisdom is the emotion, is being triggered without the emotional charge of it. I still run from my triggers. Yeah, I saw my trigger yesterday. A whole human being, right? The person I was talking about in terms of a situationship that I was in, and I didn't know that it was a situationship. I thought it was a relationship. As I mentioned, my trauma, I trusted people out there, their ideas and what they think instead of myself, right? So this is a man that I trusted. This is a grown man. I talked about arrested development. That's how I understood what arrested development is. That you can see a full-grown man, a whole human being, and they are still at that age of their pain and their trauma, right? So what you said here, I still run away from my triggers. He is one of my triggers. because of the toxic relationship we were in, and I had to remove myself from there. And I saw him yesterday. I was walking past, about to cross the road with my daughter. His car was right here. The place to cross is right here. So I had to stand right here in front of his car. As soon as he saw me, he stepped out of his car. Because the old me would have looked him in the eye, would have smiled, as a guy that I really, really liked. Right? So I stepped out. So I looked at the road. I could see him. He is right here. And I looked right here at the road. And he stood there, crossed the road with me. See if I would acknowledge him. I didn't. And after I walked past, that's when I knew that I have healed that trigger. And I felt like I won. I was like, yes. Why? Because there was a time. Oh, Facebook is blurry. There was a time that seeing this person is like death. It feels liberating, Giselle. Yeah. So when you heal your triggers, when you lean into your triggers, so while I was still seeing him every day in the neighborhood with him triggering me, right, I would force myself to go outside and not just stay inside. Because I had older women who went through their own, I'm trying to wipe this Facebook and YouTube. I had older women who went through their own pain and hurt talk to me and explain to me how they themselves went through those situations, how they got out of it. And one of them, who was my first therapist, was like, look forward to the day that you can see him, walk past him, and not feel that crippling trigger, that pain and hurt. My children's father was triggering me yesterday, saying that when I was younger, I yelled at the kids. It wasn't his, and he wants a DNA test. I wanted to reply, but I said no. Heal from it and give it no attention. The words that you use and how to talk to yourself is all an aspect of it, is all a part of it, right? So triggers are a quick and an easy way to heal yourself. I kind of don't like how Facebook looks. I need to heal that part too, the perfectionist in me. Right, let's go to the next question. So trust is deep. Trust is deep. We have to trust that we are going to wake up tomorrow, but we don't think about this. We have to trust that we will breathe. We trust that our breath, we are breathing subconsciously, and we don't even think about that. We have to trust that. Being called stupid is a trigger from my childhood too. Right. Which means healing that and hearing somebody saying you are stupid doesn't mean you are stupid. We cannot control what other people do, but we can control ourselves and how we respond to situations. Yes, love rightly. I was called stupid by my dad. Same here. I've been called stupid my entire life by my mother, by my uncle, right? So I would generally be around men or women who see me as less than or underestimate me, or think I'm not valuable or I'm nothing. Right? This man that I just explained to you about, the time that I decided I'm going to leave him, he told me, oh, but you have a child. Men don't want to be with women with children. And in my head I said, then I will be single forever. But I am not staying here. Why? Because I could see that that is the same relationship that my mother is. That is the same marriage that my mother is in. So I'm like, I would stay single, be by myself, raise my child, then stay in a relationship that's not good for my soul. But I have always called myself stupid, dumb, because that's how I was referred to as a child. Every mistake in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I am so stupid. And I suffer from saying, maybe I am not smart enough. Exactly what I just said. Yeah. And I realize my daughter suffers from that too. Mimicking. I just read about mimicking. Our children mimic. Right? So, example. If you are like me and you have difficulty relating to your parents, right? It's because, like I said, you are a photocopy of your parents. When they see you, you trigger them. They see the hurt, they see the pain, they see the mistakes. They see themselves in you. Right? For me, I never had to say who my mother was. Because people know her, they see me, they know I am her child. Right? But yet I never say those things to her. You don't have to. Right? I guess she's suffering from my pain too. The bloodline, exactly. It carries over. It carries over. That's why generational curses and breaking generational curses is a thing. The bloodline, all of that is a thing. The children mimic. There's a saying, when you do childhood development, or if you study just all these issues, right, you will understand that children don't learn from what their parents tell them. Children watch what their parents do, and then they do exactly the same thing. The way I dress right now, I have never taught my daughter this. But there are days where she would say, I have a surprise for you. And I say, okay. She said, don't come into the bedroom. I say, okay. And she will go and do her hair tie and do the makeup and do this and then wear the bracelets, right? I love Yemaya dressed up in blue like her, the African spirituality. And she would just come out looking exactly like me. And so for me, changing the way I dress, the way I talk, the way I see myself, the way I behave, is understanding that in order for me to teach my daughter her power and who she is as a woman, I have to embody that energy, that way of being, that power. Right? I cannot tell her. I have to be it and let her see that. Another issue when it comes to trauma, right? It's because our parents were one way and then trying to raise us to be a different way, which does not work. TLC, the products that I use, the products that I sell, right? They tell us you cannot sell the products just by telling people buy this. You have to be the products. You have to use it, see what it does in your body, right? Feel the transformation, transform your life and yourself. That way, when you talk to people, they can feel it. They can feel your energy. That is the same thing with parenting. The trauma is mostly based on, from my own experience, our parents being one way and wanting us to be another. I just spoke about God and the divine. Coming from a very religious household, Muslim for that matter, preaching all these things, but they were not living it. The woman that they wanted me to be, or the girl that they wanted me to be, they were not that woman. That's not who they were. My uncle, who was constantly abusing me physically, but also sexual abuse verbally, from the words, the choice of words he was using, saying that he wanted to discipline me. He couldn't discipline me because he wasn't the man he wanted to be, who could teach me these values. That's what makes the trauma so painful, because they're telling you to be one way, but in their idea, in their mind, they think that they are who they are telling you to be. So they themselves, narcissism in its real sense, not just what society throws at you, right? That confusion that they have within themselves, not knowing who they are, but trying to tell you who you are, trying to tell me who I am and who I'm supposed to be. It doesn't work. If you want your child's life to be different from who you are, if you want your child's life to be different than the way that you were raised, you have to be different. You cannot just tell them. They will not listen. They will do exactly what you do. Not only do I look exactly like my mother, but my life journey and the things that I went through is also a copy of the things that happened to my mother. Physical abuse, sexual trauma, money trauma, pain and hurt, breaking so many hearts of men and having no idea this is what I'm doing. People telling me you are a heartbreaker, and I'm like, I am dying with so much pain. I'm not trying to break nobody's heart. I don't even know what love is. That is the generational curse. You have to heal it. You have to lean into the trigger. Somebody calls you stupid because of your childhood, it still triggers you because you haven't gone back to that inner child. So to that child, that particular aspect of your childhood that was called stupid, to heal that. Yes, I felt that when you said that. Yes. Yes. Third question. Are you a trustworthy person? If so, how are you trustworthy? Think about this question, because most of us would say, I am trustworthy, you can trust me. But is that so? If you don't trust yourself, you are not trustworthy. If you're not honest to yourself, you are not trustworthy. How do I know? I thought I was the most trustworthy person that the world has ever seen. I tell people and friends, you can trust me. I didn't know what I love what I love was, so when my partner is different, my mind was rejecting him and finding fault, but he showed me love. I don't trust myself. I could be more trustworthy, and the reason is I don't exactly. So the ladies, you got what I'm saying right here, right? On Instagram and on TikTok, I'm seeing the shares, thank you, and the hearts, thank you, right? So it's making sense, right? YouTube and Facebook here, okay. So we're doing good, right? I thought I was the most trustworthy person. I would always say, trust me, you can trust me. But now I don't say that anymore. Because the saying that actions speak louder than words is not just a saying, it's an actual thing. The moment you trust yourself, just by your aura, how you move, how you carry yourself. I had to learn this from older women, which is why in most healing circles, I should start mine. They keep telling me to start it, right? In most healing circles, they always tell you, look for older women who you want to be like. In Buddhism, people think that they are worshiping Buddha. When I lived in a monastery. I lived in a Zen center for about 6 months and then went to the monastery itself. If you are in New York, Zen center of New York City, their monastery is the Zen Mountain Monastery in upstate New York. But wherever you are, you can find it, right? When I was there, because my parents and the way that they raised me, they think that anything that's not Islam, when they die, they're going to hell. And then I realized that in Christianity, anything that's not Jesus, when you die, you're going to hell. So much confusion. But in there, right, in the monastery, what they said was, they don't worship Buddha or Buddha's wife. The journey is to emulate the enlightenment of Buddha, is to embody it, right? So you are relating yourself to Buddha. So you venerate, you meditate, you give offering, you light the candles and the incense, not to worship, but to be able to see yourself as Buddha, which is the same thing in African spirituality, right? Yemaya, who I'm dressed as, I'm not worshiping Yemaya. Understanding and reading the story of Yemaya and Oshun. My baby is cranky and ready for nap. This was great. Yes. Dear me, and we can talk. I might not reply quickly, but that will happen. And I'll see you back here on Monday. I'll be live on Monday again. Right? So I'm not worshiping deities or stones, but I have them with me so that when I look at them, I can see myself in them, and to read their story and their life journey and whatever they went through, and be like, I want to be like them to overcome what I'm going through. So the question was, are you trustworthy? Are you a trustworthy person? If so, how trustworthy are you? Do you know how trustworthy you are? Are you honest to yourself? Are you honest with yourself? Do you lie to yourself? If you lie to yourself, you are not trustworthy. Okay, let's forget the people out there, right? One aspect of trauma, I always love doing this. You can't see it here. I have a tattoo of my country, the Gambia, West Africa. I love it. And the African map. But I love seeing this. Anyway, if you lie to yourself in your head, right, before anybody can gaslight you out there, you have to gaslight yourself first. So like I was saying, when we are traumatized, we always think that it's everybody out there, and we want it from everybody out there instead of ourselves. Right? So let's remove trust in others. Right? Let's talk about ourselves deep within our soul. Right? If you lie to yourself, if you gaslight yourself, let me read the definition of gaslighting. Because like I always say, some of these things I have heard before and never knew, right? Gaslighting. And it's a movie as well. 1944 movie. Gaslighting, it's making someone seem or feel unstable, irrational, and not credible. Making them feel like what they are seeing or experiencing isn't real, that they are making it up, that no one else will believe them. Gaslighting involves an imbalance of power between the abuser and the person that they are gaslighting. Right? I had to learn that gaslighting from my last situationship. But then, in order for somebody else to gaslight you, you have to be gaslighting yourself. You have to be dishonest with yourself. You would have to be lying to yourself, right? Thinking that what you are thinking and the ideas that you have are not real and are not true. Do you, for most times, feel crazy? Or why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? Maybe this person didn't mean it that way. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am overthinking. Now, I'm not saying it is not good to think about these things. But I'm saying, if you do this to yourself, you don't trust yourself, you're right. You have to agree with the gaslighting. Yes. You have to first be gaslighting yourself. Which is why, when you listen to Shira 7, right, when you listen to Shira 7's streaming on YouTube, she would always say that in order for you to avoid men, because she mostly talked to women, and this is good for men too. So in order for you to avoid being gaslit, a man or a woman gaslighting you, you first have to gaslight yourself. Understand the way that you gaslight yourself. Gaslight yourself to the point that no gaslighting can bother you anymore. So that the moment somebody else tries to gaslight you, you are like, I already do this to myself. You cannot do it to me. Right? So that's a process as well. But that's one aspect to the point that you understand. So I'm at that point, me, for myself, right? Now, if I see, I'm going to put it in a romantic way, even friendships as well, right? If I see someone with their hurt and their pain, or right now on Instagram, especially that my account is growing and it's getting noticed, I'm not even at 1,000 yet, but because of the things I post and the hashtags that I have, I get so many of these messages. People trying to gaslight me into selling something, into buying something, into some of these things. And I would always say, I do this to myself. I've done this to myself my entire life. But say you don't know. You have no idea that you do this to yourself. And you're always saying, this person makes me feel crazy. The only reason that person makes you feel crazy is because you make yourself crazy first. So you agree with your own being crazy. But that's also because the voice in your head. Who is the voice in your head? I always ask this question. Who is the voice in your head? Who's talking in your head? What is that voice in your head saying day in, day out, every single day? Dr. Joe Dispenza says that we have the same thoughts every single day. We have over, I don't know, whatever 1,000 thoughts. And about 97 to 98 of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we think every single day. Right? He's a neuroscientist. But he adds spirituality to it. So if you always feel crazy, you always feel like, okay, so this person said that, but am I overreacting? Or you have to call somebody else to ask them, this person is making me feel like that, and I don't know. What is it I'm feeling? Why I feel crazy? This is a person that I cannot talk to because they always make me feel this way. That person cannot make you feel anything at all unless you are already making yourself feel that way. Right? Like Giselle said, you have to agree with the gaslighting. So if people don't trust you, if you're constantly around people who don't trust you, it's because you don't trust you. We feel energy. We might be conscious of it, we might be unconscious of it, but we feel energy. You can feel the energy of somebody who doesn't trust themselves. How can you trust them? You can feel the energy of somebody who truly trusts themselves, value themselves, put themselves up there, right? A lot of the people that we are attracted to, that we emulate, that we want to be like, that we look up to, right? From personal development coaches, from motivational speakers, from leaders in the world, right? We see their confidence in themselves. We see their trust in themselves. Why was Corporate Tate all of a sudden able to just sweep the internet with the things that he said and he was doing? It's because when the man speaks, you can feel his confidence through the screen. And for me, being in his digital campus, learning content creation, you don't believe me? Check the link in my bio, the real world. Just by the lessons we have in that campus, their trust in the things that they are teaching and they are saying, it oozes out of the screen. So if you feel people don't trust me, people don't believe me, I do this for you, I do that for you, and you don't trust me and you don't believe me, do you think I'm going to do this to you? If you say that, if you think that, that is because the person you're talking to, they can feel and they can sense that you yourself do not trust yourself and you don't trust who you are. I'm taking hair, nail, skin as part of the products I sell. You know, I mentioned using products to bring myself back to life. I am growing my locks as well. Give me a year or two and then you're gonna see them flowing. Right? So I take these products to help me, help with my skin. I'm not very good on makeup. This is the best I can do. So I use products to help me. Herbal supplements, right? So the simple way of talking about trustworthiness is looking at your own life. Do you trust yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Do you make yourself crazy? Nobody can make you crazy unless you make yourself crazy. Number 4, for whom do you feel the most trust? What is it about this relationship that inspires trust? Who do you trust most in your life? Why do you trust them? The simple answer I can give you, you trust them because they trust themselves. You cannot trust somebody who doesn't trust themselves. So whoever you trust in your life, you're watching me now, you're listening to me, right? Maybe this is the replay that you're catching. And then I ask this question, for whom do you feel the most trust? What is it about this relationship that inspires trust? Look deeply into the person that you feel that you trust. Why do you trust this person? Because they trust themselves. Because you feel that they trust themselves. And because they trust themselves, you feel you can trust them. Because they know what they are saying. Most times we vote for people. Why? Because we feel like they know what they're saying. Obama, the confidence, the trust in himself, the choice of words, the emotions that he tapped into us. Regardless of the things that happened while he was the president, many people trusted him because we feel that he trusted himself. The people that we learn from, the people that we listen to. One of the ladies told me that they wanted to be around me and my coach. Why would that lady trust me enough to want to be around me and my coach? It's because we exhibit that we trust ourselves and that we know what we are talking about. And we are confident enough to come on live and talk about issues that a lot of people consider to be what? Woo. But we trust that we are saying what we know. Who is the person you trust in your life? Why do you trust them? You don't trust them just because they are beautiful, or that they look good, or they smell good, or they are driving a Bugatti. I'm in the real world. We talk about Bugattis a lot. They exhibit trust. They ooze out trust. That's why we trust them. Number 5. Number 5 is, if you were here before, you heard me mention this lady on my Instagram who commented that every time she saw me, and because I was in the fashion industry and the way I moved, she thought I was happy. But if she really knew herself, she would see that I wasn't happy. She wouldn't feel that way about me if she really knew herself. Because if you really know yourself, you can feel the energy of another. Number 5. Do you generally feel physically and emotionally safe with those for whom you care deeply. How do you feel about this? Do you generally feel physically and emotionally safe with those for whom you care deeply? If I made it wet. Look at that. I look like I'm breastfeeding. I breastfed for 4 years, maybe 5 years. So do you generally feel physically and emotionally safe with those for whom you care deeply? Do you feel safe within yourself first, right? Do you feel safe? Do you feel safe where you are? Do you think the world is about to end tomorrow? Do you wake up first thing in the morning and you're watching the news and then you feel like that's the end of the world? Do you feel like you are in a world where you are not safe? At any day, you can get robbed, you can get killed. Do you feel safe within yourself, right? So for me, everything I talk about, it always starts from us. Before it goes out, what the book says, do you generally feel physically and emotionally safe with those for whom you care deeply? If you don't feel safe around people that you care about, that's because you don't feel safe within yourself first, right? And then you attract people who you don't feel safe around. Even if you don't feel safe around your parents and your family, which is what I talk about, that my vision is to create a home for those who never felt at home, because I never felt at home. When I began to feel home in myself, when I began to feel safe in myself, I had to let go of all the people who made me unsafe, because now I felt safe within myself. I felt at home within myself. Home is not a physical structure. A house is a physical structure, right? A home is an internal thing. There's a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. I had mine, but I think I gave it away. Right? I talk about all of these books. Maybe we're going to have a book club. I might do that. The book is called Wherever You Go, There You Are. When you feel safe in yourself, in your heart, in your soul, it becomes different. Everything is different when you are safe and at home within your being, inside of yourself. Fundamentally, then wherever you go, there you are. You have this air of feeling at ease. There's a store here in my neighborhood where they sell these summer dresses. You good? Did you write your words? Binaga sa words. You read the book and write the words. There's a store here in my neighborhood that I would go to buy these dresses, right? And then sometimes I would go to get my daughter some stuff, summer dresses.
Like my wedding now.
And one time I was there and I was speaking to these women. Most of them were Caribbean, right? And I was talking to them. I have been to that store several times, and then one day the woman said, you seem so at ease, right? I can tell you don't feel that there is any woman against you. You just feel at home. You are easy to talk to. And I told her that did not happen all of a sudden. I didn't just wake up one day and became that like that. I told her it took a lot of work for me to be able to feel at home and to feel at ease within myself, to the point that people can look at me and say, you feel so at home. So it doesn't start with people out there. It starts inside. Right? Can you sit inside your home or at the park or maybe at the village in Africa or anywhere in the world? Sit under the tree. Sit out on the steps. What is it called? The steps? The stoop, whatever. You understand what I'm saying, right? You can sit anywhere. Sit on the grass, sit on the sand, walk bare feet, and you just feel so at home just being there. You're not thinking about next. You're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about yesterday. You're not thinking about the past. You are just there, right? You feel safe physically and emotionally. You feel safe wherever you are. Can you sit without your phone? Or even if you have your phone, what are you listening to? Can you sit with your phone and not have to scroll TikTok or scroll Facebook, scroll Instagram, Threads, Twitter, mindlessly scrolling? We get cursed out about that every day in the real world. You are doing content creation. Are you just sitting at home and just scrolling? But can you do that? Can you not have to constantly scroll to see what is next? What is next? What is next? What is next? That dopamine hit that social media give us, because that's all they give us, dopamine hit. And the reason that we subscribe to that, that's because within ourselves, in our everyday life, there's nothing giving us that dopamine hit. But also for ourselves, we cannot just sit and be. Okay, let me go to the next question. Right, so so number 5. Let me recap, because we only have 3 questions, right? Let me recap. So, when was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared about? You can cuddle and hug yourself. Someone you cared about has to be you. Hug yourself. As you're watching me now, right? Hug yourself. Love yourself. Kiss yourself. Because you need to care about you and love you. You are one of those people that you care deeply about. It always starts from you, right? In some meditations, they tell you to hug yourself, love yourself. So, when was the last time you were held and cuddled by someone you really cared about? If you just now do this, what I'm saying that you do, love yourself, care about yourself, hug yourself, kiss yourself, then you just did it. Number 2, what does trust mean to you? Number 3, are you a trustworthy person? If so, how are you trustworthy? Number 4, for whom do you feel the most trust? What is it about this relationship that inspires you? Number 5, do you generally feel physically and emotionally safe with those for whom you care deeply? How do you feel about this? And number 6, how do you feel about being dependent on, or no, let me read that again. How do you feel about being dependent on and being dependent upon someone else? Write about those relationships in your life where this is the case. Are you okay with depending on somebody else? I'm not talking about codependency. Codependency is a trauma response. Right? If you are a man, are you emotionally mature enough to depend on your wife? Not depend on her to take care of the bills and pay everything, even though there might be a time for that. Right? But trust her enough for that, to depend on her. And in the same light, do you trust yourself enough too to have somebody else depend on you? And in order for you to trust that, you have to, back to it again, trust yourself. Do you feel that you can depend on yourself? Can you depend on yourself to make your goals come true? Can you? Or do you just feel that you are dumb and you are stupid and you can't do it? Do you trust yourself? Can you depend on you? Because you have to trust that. How do you feel about being dependent on and being dependent upon? I hope I'm pronouncing them right. Right? So I am getting to a point. Okay, well, I have my daughter, so obviously she depends on me.
Hello.
As a mother, right? So if you are a parent, a mother, or a father, does it give you anxiety that your parents depend on you? And do you get anxious that you're going to get old and have to depend on your parents? And maybe do you feel they're going to put you in a nursing home? Well, if you feel that way, why do you feel that way? Go to the link in my bio and buy my products for your own health and well-being. Do you trust yourself enough? Right? This that I'm doing, which I started when? Probably this is my second week going live, or third, I don't know, on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. This is my second day on TikTok, right? But I already have regulars, people who depend on me doing on this live and talking to them and explaining these issues and me telling them my experiences. Years ago, that would have scared the life out of me, but that I have other people who are dependent on my lives, me coming live to talk to them. That anxiety would have just crippled me. There was a time in my life I would tell people, don't trust me because I don't trust myself. Don't depend on me. If you have issues with commitment doesn't have to be relationship, right? Somebody you are getting married or you are in a relationship committed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you being able to commit in your own goals and dreams, your own well-being, your own health and well-being. When I say go, buy my products because they will help you in your well-being, in your health. How do you feel when I say that? Do you trust yourself enough? Because I have to be at a point where I trust what I'm saying. I can depend on what I'm saying. I can depend on the products I sell that I use for me to be able to tell that to you. Do you trust yourself enough? Does it scare you when people depend on you? Are you scared about depending on other people, right? If you are a woman, do you feel like you have to be the independent, strong woman? You cannot depend on a man. Sometimes I speak and then some people think that I'm talking about feminism. I don't talk about feminism because I don't believe in feminism. I believe in women empowerment. I believe in the healing journey of a woman, right? I do what I do so I can help women heal themselves. But I want to be a trophy wife. I want to be at home and do all the spiritual stuff and get my nene indalma libe in the bathroom for the incense. I want to be able to do my spiritual stuff and live in the spiritual world, right? And stay at home and eat good food and have the underbee. What I use in the bathroom to put the incense in.
The spray bottle?
Not the spray bottle. The thing that I light and then I put the incense inside. The brown thing with the ashes. In the bathroom or in the bedroom. I don't know where I put it. I usually bring it here, but I forgot. Right? So there's a difference between femininity, and I'm bringing this topic because on my Instagram I get that too. I get that, right? Where people would tell me, oh, feminism this, or the first time I told my cousin that I want to talk about healing for women, she was like, oh, you want to talk about all that feminism thing? And then I realized that a lot of people do not know the difference between femininity and feminism. It's very different. Femininity is the divine mother, is the giver of life. It's the nurturer. Yes, but the place that I put it in when I light it. Girl, right? There's a difference between that. So let me go back. How do you feel about being dependent on and being dependent upon someone else, right? And it's for some women, it goes back to the difference between femininity and feminism, right? I know there was a point in my life I always thought and felt that I could not depend on anybody.
Yes, I can only find the red one.
Never mind. Leave it. Right? I always felt that I could not depend on anybody. That nobody had my best interests at heart. If you feel that way, that's trauma. Right? For me, in my experience, it was trauma. Because I couldn't depend on my parents. I couldn't depend on the people that raised me as a child. Maybe you are in a foster care. Maybe you are adopted. Maybe your parents passed away. These all can contribute towards it. Where you just cannot depend on people or anybody. You feel like whenever you depend on somebody, they break your heart or they break your trust. Look back in your childhood and understand where these issues come from. How did that happen? Because as human beings, we have to depend on each other. We have to depend on each other, right? We are not lone wolves. We cannot do anything on our own. We need the love of one another. We need the community of one another. We need the energies of one another, right? You need my money. I need your money, because money circles, right? I want you to watch me. Maybe somebody else want me to talk about these issues. We need each other. It's a give and take. The world is, I can never see this word, reciprocate, reciprocracy. You know what I'm saying? If you cannot do that, give and take, because the earth itself, it teaches us that a giver of life, taker of life. One day this person is born, the next day the other person dies. Give and take. The trees is the same thing, right? They get watered. If you have a garden, you have to sow the seed, water the garden. You have to give it something to get something out. Whatever you plant, whatever you sow, that's what you reap. But do you feel that you cannot trust anybody? Yesterday we talked about delegation, right? Do you feel that you have to take care of everything? Because if you don't do that, what happens? Nobody can do it as well as you do it. Nobody can satisfy what you need. You need to feel that you need to do everything, right? And I was saying here, I've got to the point where I know I can't do everything and I need help. I need a team for this thing I am doing, because I can see that it's a vision bigger than me, right? Do I want to still go back to modeling and fashion and all this juicy stuff? Yes, but I would love a team, a help from people who understand camera work, who understand lighting, who understand sound, who understand music, who understand this and that, to surround me. So I would have to depend on their expertise to help me to get to where I want to be. But then how do you feel about people depending on you and you depending on people? Can you depend on yourself to commit on a schedule every day, to do something every day for just 30 days? For a long time, I couldn't. I wouldn't commit to nothing. I would tell people I don't trust myself and I don't think I'm going to do this. So I wouldn't do certain things. I would run away from a lot of things, because I believe that anything that I start, it breaks down. Anything that I touch, I completely destroy it. There was a time where I would stay away from dating any man. Yes, okay, you get me, right? I would stay away from dating any man because I'm like, I don't want to break their heart. I don't want to just get up one day and get bored and leave them. I didn't trust myself to be in a relationship. So I didn't want a man to depend on me when it comes to love. I am like that with commitment. Yeah. It's part of the trust and the healing journey of yourself. Number 7, do you feel a right to have needs? Are you afraid to acknowledge that you need? I get bored easily and commitment isn't my thing. Yeah. And society pushes this on us. I think on the subway station here in New York, there was an advertisement. I haven't been on the train for like, I can't remember how long, but a while ago there was an advertisement that said, for our commitment phobes, right? So they even push this upon us, and then we see it and we're like, yeah, this is for me, for our commitment phobes. You don't have to, whatever the advertisement was. But lack of commitment can come from trauma. Lack of commitment can come from trauma. Be it a relationship, be it just commitment to yourself, commitment to do things, right? Before I decided to do these lives, I had to really think about it. Can I commit to this? But before that, I was, part of a spiritual community of women. And, the number one thing that we talked about, apart from healing the masculine and the feminine within us, was just how committed we are to who we are and our health and well-being. I can't even commit to myself for a long time. That is the main problem, right? Committing to ourselves. In order for me to get here, I had to commit to my own healing journey. Being part of the real world, was a major shift mentally and emotionally. Because over there, they don't teach you to make money fast. They teach you how to commit, how to build that discipline muscle. Where you can, I was just listening to one of the morning audios, the morning trainings that they send us in the real world, right? How to build that discipline muscles, how to trust yourself, that you don't give up. That, you have needs, you need something, you need to be committed to yourself, right? Because in order for you to be committed to yourself, you need to know that you have needs. Can you acknowledge your needs? Can you acknowledge your needs? As a woman, can you say that you need a man? As a man, can you say that you need a woman? Right? We say we need to eat. We need to go to the bathroom. These are natural stuff, and we're not ashamed of saying that. But we have different needs as well. And I'm not talking about needy in a toxic, in a traumatic way, but just normal everyday life things. Can you admit that you need love? Better yet, can you admit that you need money? Can you say that I need money? Are you ashamed to say that you need money? You need money to take care of yourself. You need money to be better in your life, right? That's the thing where people cannot say it. I'm from that type of family. My mother used to say, I don't need anybody. I don't want anybody to help me. It took me years to know how to ask for help, because I couldn't even help myself. Right? So, do you feel a right to have needs? Do you feel like you cannot have needs? You're not worthy of needing love. You're not worthy of saying, that's spilled on my book. Right? Can you say you need? I had to change that mentality in myself, where now the awakening is coming, where it's it's an event hosted by Stormy Wellington in Miami. And I know, I'm wearing blue, right? Yamaya, diamond. I want to buy a diamond ticket. So I told them, I don't just want a diamond ticket. I need it. because I need that shift in mentality. I need a change in my life. I need a transformative change in my life, right? I need to leave the place that I am. I want to be in somewhere better and bigger and much more powerful. I need to be around different people. Years ago, I would not say that. I would just say, oh, that's too expensive. I'm not going to do that. I don't need to be there. I can figure these things out on my own. Right? I can sit here today and tell you that what I'm doing, I need to do it. Not for the attention. Of course, I love the attention. But I need to do it for my own healing. I want to do it. It feels good to do it. So, do you feel a right to have needs? Do you feel you are worthy of needing somebody, of needing something? Not being needy, but needing. I know when it comes to relationship, right, it will have to be a man who's okay with a woman who can love obsessively. Because I'm channeling my obsession here. I am learning and I'm getting better, right? But I had to see that an aspect of me is I can be very obsessive. And I know how to love. The people who have never felt love or who have never been loved, they know how to love. And sometimes their love can come off as obsessive. And so we need partners who understand and are okay with that. Are you able to see your needs and know that you are worthy of everything that you say, that you feel that you need? Do you believe that? Or do you feel that you need somebody to listen to you? To listen to the silly things you say, to laugh at your silly jokes? We need it. We all need that. The last question. Do you feel your needs are adequately met, or do you feel your needs are mostly unfulfilled? Better yet, do you feel fulfilled or do you feel unfulfilled? As you are listening to me now, do you feel fulfilled or do you feel unfulfilled? If you feel unfulfilled right now, right, as you're hearing my voice, your needs are not adequately met. Do you feel your needs are mostly unfulfilled? Right? Successful people always say that never be fulfilled, because then you get in your comfort zone. You get lazy, right? You become complacent. Always strive to be better, to grow, and all of these things, right? But some of the needs that you have, or today, even in our lessons, the one I was talking about in the real world, right? The professor was saying that constant stress of wanting to be better and wanting to do more and wanting to be more and knowing that you can be somewhere better is a healthy stress, because that helps you develop the muscles and the mentality, and it opens up your mind for you to get to where you want to be. So that is healthy. But generally, right? So let's put that one apart, right? I can give you an example. I am fulfilled, but at the same time, I am not fulfilled. I am fulfilled within myself, right? My cup, like Oprah Winfrey would say, my cup runneth over to the point that I can feel your cup. So generally, I feel fulfilled, but at the same time, I don't feel fulfilled because I know that my life can be bigger than what it is today. So generally for you, do you feel your needs are adequately met, or do you feel your needs are mostly unfulfilled? Because when you're traumatized, you feel very unfulfilled. Like there's a hole in your soul. Like there's like something is breaking your soul into pieces. Do you feel that? Do you still feel that? Do you still have that pain where it doesn't matter what you do, where you go, what you say, you feel unfulfilled? Yes, unfulfilled, right? Closing. Your responses to these questions are most likely related to the experience you had as an infant. If at an older age you were the victim of a traumatic event such as incest, that event would still appear. Let me read that again. Let me read that better. Your responses to these questions are most likely related to the experiences you had as an infant. If at an older age you were the victim of a traumatic event such as incest, INCEST, that event would still impair your original experience of trust and safety. It would be helpful in that case to deal with both ages with respect to that wound. Issues of trust and safety continue to run consistently through all ages. The healing is initiated, however, with the original time of your life when you were the most dependent, when you were an infant. Combine the information you obtain in both exercises and list the issues from infancy. Combine the information you obtain in both exercises and list the issues from infancy that you feel are present in your current life. Right? And then this is the example. Potential issues from this developmental stage. Fear of intimacy because it could result in abandonment. I mentioned this, right? Needing but being afraid of physical affection, physical touch, love, whatever it is. Continual need for oral gratification, eating, smoking, drinking, sex. Fear of acknowledging needs because of the fear that they will not be met. Or just feeling like you're not enough for you to need that, to want that. Some people are afraid of succeeding. Some people are afraid of wanting to succeed. Some people are afraid of being rich. Some people are scared of wanting to be rich or even speaking it out loud because they feel, who am I to talk about these issues? Who are you? You are you. You are who you think you are. You think you're great, you're great. You think you're not great, you're not great. You are who you think you are. Inability to trust, even in trustworthy situations. I can sit here and tell you, go to the link in my bio, try the products that I sell. Inability to trust, even in trustworthy situations. And they say, she's just telling me these things. She's just talking. I don't know her. Right? So, In closing, to end the live for today, and we will be back on Monday. Let me read this part. Although these exercises help to identify your issues, they also suggest possible strengths that were carried from this stage. As you think back over your infant stage, reflect on these strengths. If you were unable to trust your caretakers to meet your needs, you may have learned very early how to take care of yourself.
Can I make it?
How to take care of yourself. Although there are wounds associated with this trait, there is also the strength of being able to meet your own needs. You might think that you cannot meet your own needs, but you can meet your own needs, right? Record any ideas you have on how your experience at this stage may have contributed positively to your development. So many a time, people who have healed from trauma would tell you that your trauma is your superpower. Some people would tell me, I don't believe in superpower. Somebody told me that. But your trauma is your superpower. Monday we will go to the next one. The next step, step 3, regress and experience your pain, like feeling your feelings. Right? Your trauma can be your superpower. I don't know why I went through my trauma. The things that I went through, maybe one of the reasons that I went through the things that I went through is so that I can sit here with you today and tell you these issues. But if I didn't heal from it, I wouldn't know. Maybe the reason that I went through the things that I went through is so that I will be the first person in my bloodline, in my family, to break the generational curses, to bring things to light. Right? Maybe the reason as a child, I turned out to be my mother's mother. So like it said in the book, right? Taking care of self, taking care of everything. Instead of having parents, I was my parents' parent. Maybe the reason that I went through that is so that at this age in my life, or at this stage in my life, right, I can be a mother to those who need one, regardless of my age. Which is why I say that my vision is in life is to create a home for those who never felt at home. Because I know, one, I have never felt at home, but I know how a home is meant to feel, because the home is different from a house. Right? Because I have been my mother's mother. Instead of her being my mother, I know how to mother. Because I've never felt love, I know how to love. I know how to give love, and I know how to receive love. Which is why the things that you went through in your life, there's a power in it. There's a superpower in it. Now it is your job and your responsibility to bring that power out. But you cannot do it if you are scared. You cannot do it if you're not healed. You cannot do it if you're not ready to be vulnerable. However, I can, certain words I cannot say, especially the ones with the R. If you're not ready to be vulnerable within yourself first, to love yourself, to believe in yourself, to trust yourself, to be in touch with yourself. The next step is about feeling your feelings. Still being able to control your feelings. You can feel the feelings and sit with them and control them. Right? Run the day, run your feelings, not let your feelings run you. If you are still traumatized, then your feelings are still running you. You are not controlling them. We want to control everybody else but ourselves. We think everybody needs to change but us. We think that success and wealth and whatever has to just drop on our laps. All of these are traumatizing experiences. If you sit at home and you are overeating and you are overweight, that's a traumatizing thing. Change your life, right? Dr. Wayne Dyer, God rest his soul, said when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you are under eating, right, and you have eating disorder can be overeating, under eating, like I used to do, right? There's something that's stopping you from eating healthily that your body needs. So you need to see that. You don't want to die young. You don't want to die the death of whoever in your family, right? From cancer, from hypertension, from diabetes, from whatever it is, diseases. You don't want that. And knowing yourself is part of taking care of your health. And to close, I'm going to say that that's what I'm here for, right? Go in the link in my bio, send me a message. Let's talk about it, right? Yesterday, somebody sent me a message that they want to lose 5 pounds. That's something we can work on. Some people say, I don't need a coach. Everybody needs a coach. Even coaches need coaches. Therapists need therapists. A therapist always have a therapist. A coach always has a coach. I that I'm sitting here talking to you, right? I have a lot of coaches. When I go to the real world, every subject is taught by a professor coaching us. When I'm in Girl Hold My Hand, we have different coaches as well. The business that I'm doing, TLC, I have a coach as well. Everybody needs a coach. If you think you don't need a coach, you are still traumatized. If you think that nobody can tell you to change your life, to eat healthy, to be better, show you what you need to buy and not buy, tell you your needs and wants, you are still traumatized. It's one thing to want to die that way, but it's a whole different thing to say that, listen, I am ready. I want to change my life. I want to lose weight, or I want to gain a little bit more weight. I want to eat healthy. I don't want to die the death of my parents or whoever it is. Your parents might be still alive, but they are dead spiritually and emotionally. I know, because I'm from that family, right? So go to the link in my bio, look at the stuff that I have used for myself. If you are on here and the trauma is too much, if you think you have suicidal thoughts, go to the link in my bio and call the suicide hotline. I put it in my bio for a reason, because I've been through it for years without knowing, seen it in my own blood sister. Went to school to become in school as the curricular activities, and then I was being trained to be a coach, and they had to teach us how suicide manifests in people. If you are a man and you are watching me, right, one of the things that Cobrate talks about is, before you commit suicide, just go to the gym and get a 6-pack first. And then after that, if nothing gets better, then you do what you want. But go to the gym first. As a man, if you have suicidal thoughts, go to the gym first and get yourself a 6-pack. And as a woman, I'm going to say, right, if you have these issues, just tap in your femininity first. And that is something that I can help you with, because I've been through that journey when it comes to women. When it comes to men, you can click the link in my bio, join the real world. You don't need to pay for a gym. All the exercises, right, me get into the shape, I don't go to the gym, all the exercises in the real world that you need for yourself. As a woman, when it comes to femininity, you have suicidal thoughts. Tap in your femininity first. Get to dress the way you like to dress when you were a child. The perfumes that you liked when you were a child, right? The hairstyles that you like, the jewelry, the earrings, right? The type of candles, the scents that you like, the incense and scent and whatever it is that you used to like as a child or wanted to do that you were not able to do, the dresses that you love to wear, right? It can be flowy dresses. It's summertime. Tap into that, do that first, and then see if you don't feel better. And if you don't feel better, send me a message first before you do anything, because there's a way out. Cocaine cannot give it to us. Hard drugs cannot give it to us, right? I am a big advocate for marijuana and weed, but then people abused it. I'm from a family that has abused it, which that's how I went through my physical abuse, right? It's called the healing of the nation for a reason. It can heal you, but it can destroy you as well. Okay, so I'm gonna go, right? I have said a lot. We've been here for 3 hours. For 3 hours. I might stream longer. I'm learning. I'm getting there. I have to get myself together, listen to more spiritual and self-development stuff to get my mind much more open so I can receive more messages that I can give out, right? But go to the link in my bio, look at what you need, what can help you. If you don't know, send me a message and I'm going to help, because I needed people to help me. And I didn't know it until I knew that I needed people to help me. The book that I'm reading, I didn't buy it. This book that I'm reading, The Inner Child Workbook, What to Do with Your Past When It Just Won't Go Away, I didn't buy this book. I didn't even know that this was a thing. Another woman, right, who's never met me, before, in my former school, she was the director of the she was or still is the director of the Early Childhood Center. She heard the things that I was talking about in college, how passionate I was about these healing stuff, and I was still in my pain. And she bought me about 10 books, which I'll be going through. I'll be reading the mother one, the father one, this book, right? Books about the black child being raised as a black girl. All these books, she gave me a whole bag of books for my healing journey. Everybody needs help. If you're from a family like mine, then you think you don't need help. Then you think you can do it by yourself. There's a saying, and I'm going to close with this saying: all the choices you've made, everything that you've done in your life is what brought you to this point. You need a new way of thinking. You need a new way of being to get to where you want to be, right? Doing the same things, expecting a different result is what? Insanity. Bye-bye. I will see you again.
Done?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, why did you put the food in the oven and there's so many flies in there?